Oh,
Somebody's got a speaker open.
Okay, we're live and start speaking.
we're getting speaker feedback from over here.
They're getting Zoom feedback on the laptops. Can you turn the laptop down?
It says he's muted.
Your speaker on your laptop,
I
Chris?
turned it off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And it's still
muted.
doing it?
Yeah, I'm muted.
All right, well, let's see. No, we're not getting any feedback now. We're good. Thank you. Yep, perfect. Good evening. Welcome to the Park Commission meeting of January 6th. Calling the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. We are both hybrid and we're hybrid, so we are in person and on Zoom. For anybody calling in from home, you can access it via Zoom. You good? You can access via Zoom, and the code is 792-737-0353. And the toll-free number is 888-475-4499. And as always, if you're joining the Zoom, please be careful of what you screen share.
Yeah. That's your Wi-Fi. There's nothing to turn on. I think it's your mic.
You're the one highlighted on the screen.
Yeah, I know that's me right now, but you were talking earlier. Yep. I'm not muted.
All right, with us this evening is
Sorry about that.
Rob Oliver, our DPW director, as well as Chris Sullivan, Anna Lockwood, and Dave Passios. All right, first thing on our agenda is any public or board comments.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. It'd actually be more appropriate at the 7 o'clock meeting, but I'll make it now and maybe again later if we have more people show up. I just wanted to comment with all the information and misinformation that's been flying around over the past month or so about this project. I've been intimately involved in getting this off the ground in the last couple of years. And again, I'm speaking as a citizen, although I am a member of this board, but my reason for bringing this whole project forward and naming it a master plan is that's exactly what I believe this is and our intent is. A master plan gives you a roadmap to the future of whatever you're master planning. So it doesn't mean that you're going to do a wholesale bulldozing or changing of a particular area. It just gives you a roadmap as to what's there, what condition they're in, and what other possible uses or changes could be made, not will be made. When we get down to the two proposals, there may be some things in there that are a change, but we'll all discuss those also. Thank you.
Great, anybody else comments?
Thanks for saying that, dude.
Thank you. All right, our next up is our DPW director, Rob Oliver, with our budget presentation and discussion. Take it away, Rob.
So good evening, and I just want to thank everybody for coming in a little bit earlier and revising the meeting to squeeze me in before the more important master planning conversation. I did send out, and I hope all of you have the target budget that I sent to the members. I'll go through it real quickly. There's not a lot of line items in this budget. So for fiscal 23, under personnel, we have a park supervisor salary targeted at $24,581.44. That's a hard number based on salary needs. The next one is town beach salaries at $20,000. You'll notice in the target is $20,000. I had listed the request at $26,000. The reason I had done that was in looking at where we are right now, what we have left. Last year, this item had gone over, and I believe it's gone over in the past in other years. Actually, after my email, Dave brought a good point to me in regards to the revolving account, the parks revolving account, and why it's not used for salaries or why is it used for other things, which led me to have a quick email conversation with the town accountant as well as town manager. So while I was originally thinking or planning on asking for an additional $6,000 on this line item, I think it's more prudent to leave it where it is, where the target is at 20,000, and any overages, use funds out of the revolving account, since that's actually, directly related to a large amount of funds that come in from swim lessons, the use of the beach and whatnot, and it is directly related to that. So what I had requested here is 26,000. I'm actually going to make that 20,000. So I'm going to keep it right where it was and level funded from last year. So total personnel will be $44,581.44. Under purchase of services, the purchase of service line item is again level funded from last year, $46,498. And department expenses, level funded at $6,400 as well. So for a total under purchase of services of $52,898. For a total target budget of $97,479.44. So I wanted to run through that with you, go through specifically that change that I rethought and went back to 20,000 on the beach salaries. And for that overage, plan on using the revolving fund. So that's the budget for parks. If you have questions, any recommended changes you think you want to try and get in, or specific things you want to budget for, now's the time to talk about it.
Okay, hi Rob, this is Anna. I have a couple questions. The purchase of services, I'm assuming that's the third party for maintaining the parks?
Yep, we pay for landscaping out of that. I did some fence work. We pay for things like that out of that. If there's other needs, generally contractor type things.
Mm-hmm. That, so it's, the budget is level on, which is a good thing, pretty much across every item. So when you have final F-22 budget, is that the actual, or was that what was the budget?
That was the actual budget.
That was the actual expenses, okay.
Yep. I mean, year to date, we are, we have a lot left. I'm trying to think.
Rob?
Well, actually, we're not that far off.
No, how much?
Well, no, I'm sorry. Right now, under the personnel, so supervisor and town beach salaries, we'll probably do a little better there because we had a period between Kayla and Rob coming in as temporary director. Under purchase of services, where we had, a budget of almost $53,000. To date, we've expended just under 11,000. So there's still money halfway through the year in purchase of service and department expenses. Well, department expenses is nearly expended. It's really purchase of service where we have some money remaining.
I was going to ask you, what is that you're using for the basis for department expenses? Is it number of hours, equipment, or just?
It could be, honestly, I don't know the answer to that. It could be, I know we spent some money at Trunk or Treat, although that was minimal. That was just to purchase some things for that day. I'd have to look into it. I don't know exactly where it's gone. I don't have that information in front of me. It could be, there could have been some bills paid out of there that weren't necessarily a purchase of service. I'd have to go back and see.
So Rob, just to make sure I'm understanding this, the beach salary line for FY21, which we just finished.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking of it wrong. So FY22, we have $20,000 and we've expended $23,783.
Yes.
And we still have a few
We
weeks.
still have June's.
Okay. So I agree with Dave that there's money in one of our revolving accounts. I've asked multiple times how we go about using that money to pay for some of this stuff. Because it's things like swimming lessons, and we're charging for the cost of our lifeguards. My only question, and I have a feeling Dave might have a similar question brewing. At the end of the fiscal year, we turned a decent sum of money back to free cash. And that's happened year after year after year. Is that anticipated this year, or do you have something that you're looking at project-wise or maintenance-wise to use up that money so it doesn't have to go back to free cash?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a grand plan right now for anyone, any big expenditures. I know we have an access problem at Marshall Park that I may, get some more fence and gate. I've talked to Rob Thompson about, for Parks and Rec, is there gear that we need? Is there, some programming that he's wanting to do that we have to buy? For instance, for some reason, I'm dying to play pickleball, and I know it's becoming popular. So, is there something, if we're planning on doing something like that where we needed gear? So, again, we're thinking about it, and I know historically money's gone back into the general fund, and obviously if there are needs for parks, I'd rather see that money get used. So we're thinking about it. I'm also open to ideas as they come, so pass those along when you get them, because I don't want to see that happen.
Where was the money that went back? Which line item would have been? Is it purchase service that didn't get spent?
In all likelihood, yeah. I don't have fiscal year 21 in front of me. Fiscal year 22, I didn't bring fiscal year 22, the expenditures. I mean fiscal year 21 with me. But I would assume. And we have money too, if it's in one account or another, and we come up with something we need or want for the department, we can transfer. I mean, the line item is important, but at the end of the day, there's some flexibility there. So, but my sense is it was purchase of service.
Okay. I think as we start working together, hopefully, Rob Thompson will be here for a long time, and we can plan, programs and kind of creating a better, more wholesome experience for residents. The budget becomes a very important tool for us to use to make that planning. I usually don't like to hear, we can move things around, because that defeats the purpose of a budget. But I know you're fairly recent on the job, but I would hope that maybe next time we'll have the actual for the previous year and just have some more information about how we're planning to use it, and maybe, how are we going to come up with a plan. So that's what I had.
Dave, did you have
Chairman, if I
something?
may, I was agreeable with what Karen's comments were about paying off excess expenses out of the revolving account. And one of the things that was brought forward by, I believe in Karen's comments back to the DPW director, was that in the past, they've paid as much as possible out of the line item number and have fallen back to the revolving account, because that carries over to the next year without going back into the general fund. As long as that fund stays where it is at present date, and it has been for a few years, we'll have no problems there, and include being able to possibly do some purchases through the revolving account for other needs for parks that directly benefit the users who are paying for those parks and putting money into that account. The other question I have, Rob, is on the grounds contract. Is that invoiced monthly, quarterly, or a lump sum? So we'd be seeing more invoices before the end of the fiscal year coming out for that contract?
Yeah, it's monthly, so they'll start picking up again when we do spring cleanup, and then mowing's up until July 1.
Right, okay. So some of that money sitting in there is more or less allocated towards upcoming expenses, so the number's going to be smaller by the time we get to the end of June. The other quick comment I'd like to make, and this goes back to one of Anna's suggestions a while back, and that was that this commission come up with projects that we'd like to see done, but don't need to necessarily be done right away. If we have some shovel-ready projects, is what I call them, or in-the-can projects, at the beginning of May, going into the end of May, then we'll have a handle on what's going to be potentially carrying over to free cash out of our account. And maybe if, as long as we can get everybody on board to contract for one of those projects and hold it in reserve beyond July 1 if we need to, encumbered, then that's one of the ways to manage how much money goes back to the general fund on a given year. Over the years, we've averaged in the vicinity of $25,000 per year turned back to the general fund, other than a period of time a number of years ago that calculated out, and I can't tell you exactly how many years we look back, but there was in the vicinity of $150,000 that was diverted out of parks into other line items. This was pre-Rob Oliver's tenure, and it's been discussed, but I just want everybody to be aware that there has been money available to maintain our parks. It just has not been used to maintain our parks. Thank you.
Chris, do you have anything?
Good right now, I think we've addressed it.
All right, anybody in our public have any comments on the budget discussion? All right, Rob, do you need a vote from us? Do you need anything
No, I don't.
from us?
I mean, you can certainly vote if you want. I don't think it's necessary. I think that the final say is mine, so I would certainly like your recommendations if you know, so a vote, I guess, wouldn't hurt.
I'd move that we recommend supporting the DPW Director's FY23 budget for the Parks Commission.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Since we're in person, we don't have to do a roll call vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? We are unanimous at 4-0. Great. So our next agenda item actually starts at 7, so I'm looking to temporarily, I guess, adjourn our meeting until 7, so that we can move forward at 7 o'clock.
Rob, while you're here, did you get to that Fitzgerald sign?
Yeah, I sent a couple of guys out today. I didn't see the end result, but I told them just to take the sign down and bring it back.
Awesome, thank you.
Great. Does that sound fine with everybody? So can I get a motion to temporarily adjourn until 7 o'clock?
Motion to temporarily adjourn until 7 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody that's on Zoom, please don't log off. All I'm going to do is, we're literally just going to sit here. So, yes, so you can stay put.
You're gonna leave the recording up?
I am gonna leave it on.
Rob Thompson is here too. I'm sorry, I logged in right at the tail end. Well, I was there for the budget.
say the same thing, but.
That's fine. So we'll just let you start it off. Okay. Well, yeah, you can stand up over here. He's going to start it. So it is 7:01 p.m. and I am reconvening the Park Commission meeting of January 6th. This closer? We are both on Zoom and in person. Anybody in person here knows the drill on how to make a comment if needed. If you are at home on Zoom, you're going to use your raise hand feature. For anybody that is watching at home that needs the dial-in information, it is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 792-737-0353. The Zoom link is https://us.web.zoom.us/j/web/792-737-0353. Did I get all that?
I didn't read it, but I think so.
Awesome, I think we got it all that. If you are at home on Zoom, you want to be very careful not to screen share. Anything that you screen share is being recorded and the public can see. With that, Chris.
Good evening. Just open up to some board comment here, just to iterate Mr. Passios' words a little bit earlier at our earlier part of our meeting, to address some information that's circulated through the interwebs, misinformation that's circulated through the interwebs regarding what this is and what the plan is and things about the master plan and so forth. That's what this is. This is a master plan. It's an opportunity to look at a park at 28 acres of land and make a decision about what's best for the town. There's been some misinformation out there about ball fields and things like that, and that I think there's an idea that maybe that we're coming in here with a bulldozer and we're just going to level it and start over. And that's not what the intent of this is. The intent of this is to look at what we have, the good things that are there, and how can we make the park better, improve the park, utilize the 28 acres that are there. I authored the survey that was put out months ago, and I know some people had some issues with, the word options in the survey, but that's the intent of the survey. The intent of the survey is to ask the town what they want in that park. With feedback from the survey that people want ball fields, things like that, that's all taken into consideration and appreciated. If everyone came back on that survey and no one said they wanted ball fields there anymore, it's a different story. But that's not what this is about. This isn't an idea that we're coming in and we're going to take away softball and baseball and things are just going to end in this town. That's not what's going on here. And so I just want to put that out there because there has been a lot of misinformation that's circulated. There's been some fiery comments and just trying to address that and make sure that everyone here knows and everyone online knows and the whole town knows that we're not here to, that's not what this is about. So I just wanted to kind of cast that out there.
Thank you. It's all yours. Should be on.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
So that's more for the people at home than it is for
Okay, great.
announcing here.
Can everybody hear me here okay? Okay, great.
Yep, we got you.
All right. So I'm going to screen share. And, oh, it's the label. It's disabled. Karen.
Hold on. Hold on. Try now.
Oh, great.
There we go. And if you folks want to be able to see the screen, you're welcome to turn your chairs to be able to see that. It's going to be on the Zoom screen.
Sorry, everyone.
It's there
Oh, it's up there too.
It's right there too. That's fine. It's closer. If your eyes are old like mine, I'd be the closest screen. I'll be looking here.
There we go.
Okay, how's that? Great.
So, welcome everyone. My name is Catherine Ostermeyer. I'm here with Wola Landscape Architects, and we are here to assist you as you envision the future of Lunenburg's Marshall Park. And we'd like to thank the Park Commission for engaging us for this project, and also the town of Lunenburg for being a wonderful host as we move forward with the project and begin to gather a community input. We've got an agenda for this evening. Is it? Okay, great. We'll start with welcome and introductions, move on to site analysis, Marshall Park as it is today. Then we'll take a look at the park survey results. We'll do a community workshop, and that's where, for Wola, we really get to the meat of it in hearing from everybody who lives here about their hopes and concerns for the park. And then we'll identify what next steps we're taking and how you can be a part of that. And then we will thank you for being here this evening. So welcome and introductions. We really appreciate everybody's time this evening, coming out in person, and also for everybody who's at home on Zoom. I know it takes a lot to get down here. As I said, I'm Catherine Ostermeyer from Wola, and with me on Zoom is fellow principal Emily Wright. We also have Allison Fairweather from our office who'll be helping us. And we're also joined by Nick Betts from Meridian Associates. Nick is also a landscape architect, and they provide civil engineering expertise as well. So it's a nice way to get really accurate information as we're going through this process. So, what have we done so far? The first steps in our process were a meeting here, a public meeting with the Park Commission, and that was followed by a site visit to Marshall Park. And we had the opportunity to walk through it with some of the Park Commission members, Parks and Recreation, as well as DPW. So we were able to get some of the town's perspective on maintenance and future programming and recreation. We then undertook a Mass GIS sort of analysis more spatially of the park. And our goal tonight is to share our understanding of the park so far, and then to also get your understanding, since you all live here and you're sort of the experts on Marshall Park. And then in the weeks that follow, we're going to work with Meridian and put together 2 design alternatives that will assist you in identifying the way that you want to proceed in sort of Lunenburg's vision for Marshall Park. So, without further ado, let's jump into the site analysis. We've started off taking a look at Marshall Park and Lunenburg at sort of a larger scale, like where does it sit in this area? And you can see Marshall Park, whoops, and I guess for everybody here, hold on. Sorry, everyone. There we go. All right. One more? Yes, thank you. It does not show up on the screen. So my laser pointer isn't going to work on the television. But you can see Marshall Park there in the center of Lunenburg, surrounded by Fitchburg, Shirley, Leominster, and Townsend. And it sits right in the middle of 2 sub-watersheds in the overall Nashua River watershed. So there is a lot of water sort of coming in and going out of Marshall Park, and it straddles right in between those 2. It's also, and this is as we sort of start to zoom in, you can see that Marshall Park is right near some critical natural landscape areas, and these are areas that the Commonwealth has identified as having unique wildlife. In this case, critical natural landscape sits slightly north of Marshall Park, but it's also kind of loosely connected to other natural landscapes around, and we call that a sort of pattern. And the animal in this case is the American bittern, which is a bird that likes open water and also shoreline. And if you're interested, it has a really unique call, so look it up online. And then we kind of zoom in some more, and we start looking at Marshall Park with the town context. So looking around Marshall Park, we have the town center. And around that are a number of civic buildings, school buildings, businesses, and houses of worship. So it's really in sort of the cultural and civic center of the town. It's the social area where people gather. And that's a really great resource for Marshall Park because it speaks to the ability to really animate it. And around Marshall Park, we also have parks and recreation. So there are other areas for recreation within Lunenburg. We have McNally Field, Wallace Park, the town beach. We've also got some soccer fields for youth soccer over at the primary school, and those are maintained and sort of controlled by the school. And then we have Fitzgerald Field as well. So we move on to kind of zooming in and taking a look at the zoning. In terms of the zoning, Marshall Park is largely in the residential A district with a small foot in the limited business and residential district. And you can see by looking at this map that truly the town center and the village center district kind of match up. So we can start to see the patterns forming around Marshall Park and on Marshall Park. So we've got the civic, as I said, with the town hall, post office. We've got the schools, middle high school and Turkey Hill. We've got the business districts with Bad Larry's and also the houses of worship. So once we've sort of gone through the center of downtown Lunenburg, how do we get to the park and where do we park once we get there? And this is a really important part of drawing people into a public place, is do they know it's there? If people are visiting, can they find it? And so for this, we would typically expect that you'd go along 2A along Massachusetts Avenue and swing a right and head in. The signage there is a beautiful granite sort of pier, but it's not overly legible from the street. And then once you enter, you can see that the vehicle circulation is really straight in and then sort of around through those 2 green parking areas. And that's for general parking. There's some limited parking along the entry. And then once you're inside the park, there's a somewhat limited pedestrian circulation system. Maintenance for the park comes in there off of Chestnut. And there's limited parking at the 90-foot diamond up along Chestnut. And then very limited parking along Chestnut. And we've come to understand that there's some conflict along Chestnut, particularly on game days where the park is really jumping. In terms of accessing Marshall Pond, there is kind of a turnoff there. It's not really an access point, but you can pull off there and step out and sort of visit that end of the pond. But one thing to note is that there's no designated ADA parking in the park. There's no ADA pathways. And there's no real formal connection between the park itself and the pond. You just can't get from point A to point B. So it's sort of bifurcated down the middle. And the good news is that there are a fair amount of facilities and utilities in the park. And that means that whatever changes are or are not made in the park, there's electric access, there's water access, and although it is in the sewer district, unfortunately there aren't currently restroom facilities, but there's also a septic option. So either way, in the future, you can have sort of the basic level of public space amenities.
We're actually now in the sewer district.
You are in the
As
sewer
of,
district.
like last month.
Oh, great.
2 months ago, November.
Wonderful. All right. Congratulations. So now it's time to start looking at what's in the park. I don't know how many folks here have been to the park recently, or maybe it's been a while. We start off with the 90-foot baseball diamond. These are a lot of sort of bat-related sports. We've got the softball field. We've got the Little League field. For the smaller guys, we've got the T-ball field. And then, proceeding with our bats theme, for the even smaller guys, we have the bat house. which was a Boy Scout project that is now over in the park. So all kinds of amenities. Additionally, in the park, we have other kinds of recreation. We have a basketball court, a fitness circuit, which is primarily sort of over to the west of the softball field. And I think there's some of it up in the playground. We have the former skate park, a small playground, and then a track which goes around the 90-foot diamond. And you can see photos of all those things over on the right. Unique features. So this is something that we're always excited to learn about when we start to work with a town to design something for them that's meaningful and highlights the unique things that are in their town and their town alone. And in this case, you have some beautiful fieldstone walls. I think some are historic, some are retaining, but they're really nice. You also have the cinder track rolling equipment. There's a stone table, and also there's a Pontiac in the woods. So, and these are things that, they might seem, but they're really neat. And, it speaks to Lunenburg itself and not someplace else, and that's special. We also have monuments and memorials. So the monuments in Marshall Park are speaking to special moments in the park's history, whether it's Little League teams or people who have been there before. We also have memorials, and these are special places for the people who are no longer with us, but were once special. And these are also things that should be highlighted and cherished as part of the future and past of the park. So now that I've gone through the sort of the little things that we can all see and identify and connect with, I thought it would be helpful to take kind of a jump back and start looking at the park as a whole and the acreage and thinking about how this land cover can inform future design work and future improvements to the park. So we're starting out with single-purpose recreation. And for those areas, we've got the basketball court, we've got the 90-foot diamond, softball field, Little League, T-ball. Then we've got the parking and circulation that moves through the park, the playground area, which is that sort of small magenta rectangle. And then we've got structures throughout the park which support the single-purpose recreation. And you can see photos of those over to the right. So those are sort of the man-made features for the park. We also have natural features of the park. And I think as we look at these, we can start to see why fields and things were put where they've been put. Because we do have bordering vegetated wetlands, areas with significant slopes, open water, and forest area. And those are areas where it's more difficult to put things like flat fields and things. So you can start to see where the patterns are taking shape. So the land cover also informs the regulated areas. The Commonwealth has, and also the town, they regulate areas called bordering vegetated wetlands. And so for these areas, we start to look at the town's buffers for those areas. And that's sort of offsets of the borders of the wetlands, which are important in terms of groundwater recharge and the general health of the sort of water systems and environment. In this case, we have a 100-foot buffer, and that's sort of the furthest out from the wetland. Then we have the 50-foot no-build buffer. So that's more regulated and closer to the wetland. Then we have the 30-foot no-touch buffer, and that's the closest to the wetland. So as you get closer to the wetland, it gets more and more restrictive in terms of the activities and disturbances that are undertaken. It's not a no-go, it's just an intensive permitting process. So when we think of all these things, including the regulated areas, we start to think of what areas of Marshall Park are prime for improvements. Those areas, relatively flat, not in regulated areas. And then we move to some areas where we've got a slope over 5%. It's tough to get a ball field in there, but you can kind of grade it out. So those areas can be modified. And then, as I just said, sort of moving towards the wetlands, you get more and more restrictive and more intensive permitting efforts. It's not to say it can't be done, but just that it may take more time and more money. So that helps us to think about the priority areas. And as we can see, sort of in the central area of the park, those are the areas that would be ideal. And we can certainly try and figure out ways to expand and place things thoughtfully that will be a complement to the regulatory areas. So with that, I'm going to pause for questions. We've still got the survey results from the Park Commission, and then we'll move on to our community workshop, where we really start to get some feedback and input from you all. So thank you for listening so far. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
If anybody from the public has a question, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
come up to any of these mics, just say your name and your address, so that's documented. I actually do have a question.
Oh, great.
So in the buffered areas where the wetlands and stuff are,
Mm-hmm.
our basketball court that's there now, or tennis court, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
it's within that section. Does that mean that nothing with that area can be done, improved, or?
So what that generally means is that because it's a pre-existing disturbance, you would find it, and this is, I can't give absolutes either way, because I'm not the Conservation Commission, but my general guidance would be that if you improve those areas of impervious surface or replace them, like a replacement in kind, tends to be more likely to be amenable to the Conservation Commission. If you were to take out your impervious surface and put in a pervious pavement, or put in like a meadow or something that gives additional benefit to wildlife or improves the quality of water moving into the resource area, or slows the water that's moving to the resource area. It's basically it's like a give and take sort of situation, but it does not mean that you cannot do anything in there. So, yeah,
Great, thank you.
of course.
Yes, and if there's anybody on Zoom that has a question, just please raise your hands. Go ahead, Dan.
Dan Proctor, 1529 Mass Ave. I didn't hear what you said, Karen, about the septic. Where is that at this point, as far as, I know you've been working on it for a while.
At town meeting in November, it was a warrant article that was approved. So the Marshall Park is now part of the sewer district.
Okay, so you will be able to tie in the sewer.
So we could tie into sewer. There's an option for septic if we needed it. It gave us every option that we could possibly need.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And Dan, just so you know, simultaneously, there is a draft plan for a septic system that's basically a replacement for the original system there. That's still in draft at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any hands on Zoom.
Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom have any questions?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay.
Oh, no, I do have one. Hold on one
Great.
second. Kristen, you can unmute.
All right. Hi, I'm Kristen Tuttle, 45 Chestnut Street. I was just curious, did you also look into how people are going to get access to the park if they're not on with a vehicle, like, pedestrian?
So that actually is something that we noticed was in some of the feedback for the Park Commission survey. And that's actually not something that we have looked at. It is something that will come into play as part of our design process. So it's certainly something that is on our radar. Yeah.
Anthony, you can unmute.
I did, thank you. Hi, Anthony Caiozo. Quick question. So with regards to the no-go zone, right? So sort of like that buffer zone that goes around. I understand what you're saying when you say you can't level, you can't do this, can't do that. But there's sort of some let's call it mixed use, I guess you could say, needs. right, that we've been talking with some folks in town about in terms of like doing like biking trails, right? Where it would be helpful to potentially clear things, but not necessarily grade, right? Is that a potential use of that sort of buffer area? Or is it indeed you just need to leave it pristine and untouched?
It depends on which portion of the buffer area we're talking about. So if it's the 30-foot buffer, that would be a more difficult, well, that would typically be a more difficult sell to the Conservation Commission because that's a very active and sort of soil disturbing activity. But if that were to happen within the 50-foot or 100-foot, those would be easier.
Can you go back to the diagram?
Yeah,
Can you put your map back up on the screen?
I'm trying to, there we go. Great. Can you see that okay?
There we go. That's
Okay,
it. Thank
perfect.
you. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to read on the screen here, but so red is the 30 and blue is the 100, or
So
what's the legend say?
The red is the 30-foot no touch, the orange is the 50-foot no build, and the light blue is the 100-foot wetland buffer. So it's easiest to get something done in the 100-foot, more difficult in the 50,
Totally makes sense.
even more in the 30.
Yep. Gotcha.
But not,
Awesome. So yeah, there's a ton of room there for something like that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anthony, just so you know, not impossible is what Catherine's saying. Yes,
Right.
it's more difficult to permit.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you know, all over New England, there are raised, what am I trying to come up with for the word? Pathways that go right across and over wetlands. So it is permittable, it just takes more engineering and authorization through
Right.
Conscom.
Yeah. Hi.
Totally understood. Thanks.
Cliff Worthley, 53 Woodland Drive. On your map, what is BVW?
Oh, it's a bordering vegetated wetland.
Okay. And then, so that's what the one down below is also?
Yeah. Yep. Any areas of that.
Right. And so in between those two, you can access that gray area?
So that gray area is actually survey required. So the we don't have accurate survey data for that central portion. So the actual buffers, hold on, can I set this down for a minute? Because I kind of want to just go. We're not sure of the extent of this edge of this BBW, so we can't tell you where this buffer is. But we're hoping that through survey and the delineation of these wetlands, we'll get a better idea. That's sort of down the line. So this is the big idea process, and then when you all decide how you want to proceed and for the construction documents, at that point you figure out exactly where those boundaries are.
So which areas are you looking at as unused, currently unused areas that could be developed?
So that's the thing. There is, aside from that sort of gray area in the center, which is pretty steep and not great for development, then there's not space that's not really developed and is not in a buffer.
Catherine, could I repeat a couple of the comments you made over near the map, because
Oh, of course. I'm so sorry.
did not hear. Basically, she was pointing out that gray area on the map, and there has not been a definitive survey done of that area at this point. There is, just to make all of the public aware, there is a capital project that is on the capital list that will be brought forward for the 2023 budget to do a complete survey of this park, so we don't run into going onto other people's property, cutting trees or whatever, as has happened in the past. And that will pick up that area with all of its wetlands, topography, and everything. So once we, assuming that gets funded, and after the 1st of July, unless we can find funds previous to that, this entire park will have a complete, thorough survey done before probably we do anything except maybe the skate park. Thank you.
Is that?
Nothing at this time. Thank
Okay, of course. Hi.
Corrine Scouten, 830 Mass Ave. I did a prior short stint on the Parks Commission at one point, and just before I got on, they had talked about putting parking up on that hill where the old bathhouse was. Has that been scrapped? Because it looks like the bordering lines here caused an issue for what was intended.
It did. So it's, at this point, it's going nowhere because and it happened right before I came on, so I'm hoping that I'm correct in this information, but that when they went in to put that parking lot in and started clearing, they cleared the neighbor's property. And then it turned into a bigger deal. So everything was paused at that point, and it never gained any momentum after that. So it's not on the table right now to do. Part of their job in their design process is to help figure out this parking situation. So it would be my expectation that their final plans to us will have parking, whether it's in that same area, I don't know.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Mascari. I live on 54 Chestnut Street, just a couple doors down from Marshall Park. And so kind of jumping on that issue of parking, I know probably 3 to 4 months of the year when there's the baseball going on, it becomes essentially a one-way street. And not just a one-way street, but one that has curves. So essentially, we have people backed up from one end of the park to, let's say, halfway through Chestnut Street. And if somebody's coming around the curve and somebody's coming the other way, essentially it's a game of chicken. And I don't know if there have been accidents, but I know for sure, I attest, that there have been near accidents there. So absolutely something has to be done about parking there. There's been, when I addressed it before, I can't remember who I spoke with, they said, well, get a petition, and that really didn't go anywhere. I think for the safety of everyone involved, something's got to be done. My question is that under the umbrella of the Parks Commission, or is that under the umbrella of some other part of Lunenburg?
So the street itself is under the jurisdiction of the town, and any land of the parks obviously would be under the Park Commission. So some of the parking that does happen along Chestnut Street is on our property. Clearly, it's not, we don't have enough over there, so they're parking here, there, and everywhere, including residents of Chestnut Street's front yards. That was a lovely picture to get when I'm in the middle of Alaska. It needs to be addressed, and hopefully it will be addressed this way, but I think the town itself controls that street to even do anything there. Like if say somebody wanted to make it a one-way street, it would have to go to the police chief and to the town. That's not something that we would get to make the decision on, but it's certainly something that, since we use that piece of property, it falls under the Parks Commission. We can absolutely advocate for changes within, that street to make sure that we are safe. You are not the first one to bring the concerns to us. As a matter of fact, probably 6 years ago, Corinne, I think you were still on the commission at that time, the former police chief took a video and drove down that street. And I have been greatly concerned that we're not even going to get rescue apparatus down there. If there was a house fire, we could get them into the park. I mean, they could come in a few different ways to get into the park if they needed to. But to get a fire truck down that road if there was a house fire, it's not a good situation with the parking that we have now. So hopefully they will have a grand solution for us. Okay. And if they don't, we will have to tackle figuring out what to do on the town side with that road.
So what I'm hearing is the Parks Commission doesn't have ownership of that it's more of a town.
Right, we don't have ownership of the road.
Of Chestnut.
Of Chestnut Street itself.
But,
The parking lot.
okay, so, but some of these unused areas could not be used for parking, or it's something you consider?
That's
We're
the
hoping to
goal.
alleviate some of the, I live on Highland Street, so I'm planning to get the other way.
Gotcha.
So I'm with you. And I think that, part of the plan here would be hopefully to alleviate some of that parking on that side of Chestnut Street.
Yeah.
In some way or fashion,
I
to
think
make it a little more
they're
hassle.
encouraged to use the other lot?
We do encourage them to use it, but, you know, and I think Catherine has probably heard this from us before. The problem is when they come in off of Mass Ave and they park, we don't have a great clear access way to go from the smaller baseball field in the front over to the Chestnut Street side. It's not clear. Oftentimes, the gate appears closed, even though it might not be locked. There's invasive weeds. There's been poison ivy growing up over there.
Yes.
And it stops people from wanting to park there. We did, as a park commission a few years back, request that the Phillies and we did it requested of the high school. I'm not sure they always followed through with it, to park over at the main lot and walk over. You know, but unless there's somebody down there all the time patrolling it, it's difficult to
And I
ensure.
wonder even if, at a minimal level, some signage could be put up. Not that people pay attention to signs, but perhaps that could be some small thing that at least the parks can encourage people to not park on Chestnut.
Yep.
Some do not park, well, I guess that would come through the town, but maybe on park property, some kind of signage is to direct people.
Yeah, and if
might
you
go a long way.
If you reach out to me via email, you can actually get all of us at parks@lunenburgonline.com. That's the easiest one to remember. We can have a conversation with the police chief and try to figure out how to make this a safe situation, because this master planning, this isn't happening tomorrow.
Sure.
It may not even be happening next year. It's all going to depend on what the decisions are and what it costs to do any of this work. So we have a situation that we have sports going on in the spring. What's offered tonight isn't, or, you know, when the designs come out, it's not going to alleviate the problem in the spring. So reach out to us, we'll work with you, we'll try to, have a conversation with the police chief, and we'll see what we need to do.
Sure, understood.
To try to get it taken care of.
And what would be the other part of town that does control the streets and the parking?
I think it's Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen?
Yep, or Select
Okay.
Board, yep. You did this for the crosswalk.
We had attempted that years ago when I was on the commission.
Yeah.
To try to get no parking signs on the opposite side of the field.
Yep.
And it just doesn't work anymore.
Do you know why, or? Okay, okay.
Could I just make
Yeah.
one quick response? Excuse me. Anybody that grew up in this town knows that this has been an issue for probably 7 decades. It goes back to the original building of the park almost. So it isn't anything new. I don't think it's been as aggressively talked about and built into a plan as it is being talked about now. We did make one comment to the engineers and architects that we don't want to turn the whole rest of the park into parking spaces if we can avoid it, but we do need to alleviate the problem on Chestnut Street. I think a combination of additional parking availability and enforcement on Chestnut Street would make a huge difference, and that's what's been missing for the last 2 decades at least. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just the smallest little bit that's not related but related. I'm not sure what happens with like garbage pickup, only because up and down Chestnut, I could count on a daily basis how many nip bottles I see. So I'm wondering, is that
That's
under the Parks Commission?
The DPW side of things, even that definitely falls under the DPW. But send us over an email, and I will make sure to reply to you as soon as I get it, and we will start connecting the dots with all the right people so we can get all this stuff taken care of.
Okay, thanks for your service.
Awesome, thank you.
Commission.
Can I ask a quick question, Karen? Just about the woman that's just saying that?
Yeah.
So just so we're all clear, trash, when we talk about trash in the park, right, in the park facility, I know you say it's a DPW thing, but as part of the design, right, I think anyone that's ever been to any park ever in the world, let alone in Lunenburg, I mean, there should be trash facilities within the park facility itself. So in terms of, as a design option, and this is not something obviously we need to decide, but certainly should be part of the design as we go through this process.
Right now,
So just
our parks are carry in, carry out right now.
Correct, but that does need to change.
Well,
Or it should be thought to, you know, we
there's a
should be
thought with it,
thinking
but
about changing that.
there's also a thought with studies that have been shown that the more you put trash facilities at parks, then it invites other trash to be left at parks. So it'll be looked at for sure, but there's a reason the policy of carry in, carry out exists. It's so that, you know, maybe it needs to be enforced better, but I mean, it exists so that people aren't thinking that they can bring trash to the park and leave it.
We do have one more
Sure,
question.
totally makes sense.
Do you have a? No, I don't. So Chris Martins, if you want to unmute.
Yes, Chris Martins, 981 Northwood Road. Just to clarify on that, there are trash receptacles in the park, and there is a dumpster in the park. I know because I emptied the trash receptacles during the baseball season.
So those actually belong to the Little League. They're the ones that put out any trash barrels that are there are put out by the Little League, and that dumpster is the Little League's dumpster. It's not a publicly maintained dumpster.
No, I'm just saying that if you want to find a trash can in Marshall Park, they are there. They're all around the baseball fields, and they do get emptied in the dumpsters.
For the record, though,
Seasonal.
for the record, the dumpsters are not on site right now.
They're seasonal and they're removed.
They're there up until November 1st,
Yeah.
Right.
and they get put back in April.
Correct.
All right, all yours.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. So now let's take a look at the survey results. The Park Commission, as I believe you all know, sent out an online survey, and they got a number of responses back. In fact, 431, so a great response. We have chosen to just kind of briefly highlight some quick responses, identifying the age demographics. We have the bulk of the respondents are between 18 and 50 years old. And we were interested to see that the largest requests for or the ways that people currently use the park is to walk and play baseball, softball, and t-ball, which makes sense. Those are for the facilities that are there. And then we asked people, or the Lunenburg Park Commission asked respondents, what are the things that you would like to do? Rank them in order of importance to you. And the top 5 were nature or walking trails, public restrooms, a new playground, access to the pond, and a walking track. The next round was a pavilion picnic area, improved parking, a rectangular multi-purpose field, and hard surface courts. And then we also had folks respond that they wanted restored fitness circuit, softball field, baseball field, maintenance building, and then also a skate park. So those are some of the results that the Park Commission received. And we've taken a look at these and started to incorporate them as we begin to think about a plan for Marshall Park. And what would cause people to come to the park more frequently? So we were surprised that the number 1 response was a dog park. People love their dogs, and they love for them to run around and chase each other and kind of have that socialization. People also were interested in ice skating, community events and concerts, a concession stand, and a picnic and grill area. So you can see all of those sort of activities that would enliven a park. And with that, we'd like to switch gears to our community workshop. And this is where it's nice to get a little bit more interactive. For those of you who are at home at Zoom, Emily Wright will be sending out a link to you, and that link will allow you to access an online survey that you can follow along with the survey on the screen. And then for everybody who's here in person, does everybody have the survey stuff that I had passed out? Anybody missing anything?
To us. Do we need it here?
No, we did it.
We already did it. Okay.
Yeah, you guys did it.
For anybody at home on Zoom, if you look in the chat box, Emily has just put a link up.
Yeah. So, oh, one more?
Yeah.
screen. And this is really thinking about the past of Marshall Park, because it plays an important part of Lunenburg's history. So, thanks. So we would love it if you would please describe your most recent visit to Marshall Park. Just a couple sentences. When was it? Who were you with? And what did you do? And this just gives us an idea of how people have recently, or not so recently, been using the park. And I'll just give everyone a few moments. And then, if anyone is feeling brave and feels like sharing, we would love to hear just a couple responses, both from those folks who are here with us and also those who are at home on Zoom.
You're making me work.
Will you?
Watching my grandchildren play baseball.
Watching your grandchildren play baseball. Great. Uh-huh.
Walking my dogs and my grandson.
Walking your dogs and your grandson. All right.
How do you all have grandchildren?
Exercising my 3 dogs.
Exercising your...
They're only allowed a certain area.
Okay, great. So another dog exercising. Yep, walking. Anyone else here?
Watching kids play baseball.
Kids play baseball. Anyone else? Nope.
Anyone at home?
Anyone at Zoom?
If you're on Zoom and you want to chime in, feel free to just unmute
Yeah.
yourself.
Kristen, go ahead.
There's someone raising their hand.
Baseball and softball.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, go ahead.
Yeah, so I walk every day that I can with my neighbor Karen Chow. We walk our dogs, and I know we walk morning and night. But also the fields in the big baseball field. We use the back field sometimes just to play some games as well. Soccer or frisbee, ultimate frisbee.
Okay, great. Anybody else out there in Zoom? Nope. All right. So the next exercise is something that we call Now and Future. And it's a series of 4 questions. And you'll see the 4 boxes on your papers. And for you at home, these will be sort of just 4 questions. And they give us a sense of what do you love about Marshall Park now? And what are your hopes and aspirations for the future? And what are you worried about with the future? So question 1 is, what about Marshall Park as it is today makes it special for you? Just one sentence off the top of your head, the first thing that pops.
We're expecting big things from you in Zoom land.
All right. Does anybody feeling brave and want to come share? Hi.
Memories of my kids playing softball and baseball, or our kids on fields that Dan and I played on when we were
Okay.
also in high school.
So sort of,
We grew up in it.
yeah, it's generational.
Now we're seeing our
Mhm.
great nieces and nephews do the same.
Yeah.
It's a lot of memories.
Mhm. Hi.
It's also a great place for stargazing if you have a telescope.
Ooh. All right, stargazing. Anyone else? Mhm.
Across the street from my house.
Yeah. There you go. And anybody out in Zoom land?
Yeah, we do have somebody on, do we have a Zoom
I'm
comment or
sorry.
a chat? Let's see.
I mean, for me personally,
Uh-huh.
going back, Commissioner, there's a lot of great memories that I have from the park, working with people within the community to make it a better place
Mm-hmm.
than what it is today.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
And Joe Ruth from the Phillies put in the chat box that he's looking forward to being able to continue to play at Marshall since they've done since 1984.
Oh, great. All right. And anybody else in person or in Zoom? No? All right. So let's move along to question 2. What would you like to change the most about Marshall Park? If there was one thing, just the first thing that pops in your head, what would you change about it?
Can I speak up? This is Kristen Tuttle. I think accessing it is important. From pedestrians to cars, even like a walkway from the center going over the Marshall Pond would be really cool. A nice, like a walking bridge or something.
I would say restore the things that are gone or, overgrown, the life course and the tennis basketball.
So rejuvenation. And the bathrooms.
Stacy T-Boat on Zoom said bathrooms, access from both streets, and designed parking. Chris Martin put out access to the pond. And
Okay.
Allison Melvin was restore many features that were there but are in need of repair.
Okay. Anyone else here in person? Anything that you'd like to change?
Someone else, Ben Howard said pedestrian access from the center of town.
Okay. Parking.
If anybody's at home via Zoom, please make sure you're also putting it in the survey, because that will lock in your comments for the WOLA side of the design work.
Yeah, we would really appreciate that.
Pickleball courts.
Pickleball
Just
courts?
mentioned.
Came from our senior center director.
Okay, pickleball courts? Yeah, that's good to know. All right. Here we are. We're halfway through, guys. What concerns you about the future of Marshall Park? Just one thing that worries you. It can be anything.
For me, it's overdevelopment.
Overdevelopment? Mm-hmm.
What in specific means overdevelopment?
Taking too much of the vegetation away, not having it be all parking, not having it be all structures.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the natural.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great.
Chris Martin's made a comment saying that the baseball fields would go away. Dave King says continue neglect.
Okay. So baseball fields and maintenance, it sounds like. Any other concerns or worries around here? No. All right. And last, what would you like to see in the future for Marshall Park? So what's your big hope for Marshall Park? And don't be afraid to get big on it, because that's where we start big and then narrow it down. So.
Good job, girl. Then I have to go to the bathroom.
All right. Oh, I see we're still writing.
There's a couple of responses from home. Oh, and they're moving on me. More love from the town on maintaining the fields now. A place where all ages can go to enjoy. Upgrade to baseball field concession stands, scorekeeper huts. They're in bad shape and even unsafe. Public restrooms and Chestnut Street parking seem to be the biggest immediate concerns for us.
Okay.
Walking trails and multi-use fields is another comment.
Okay. And anyone in person? Hi.
Yeah, I know we talked about this at the last meeting, but the ease of usability.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, like going with a group of people and having the whole 90-foot baseball diamond for a group of Boy Scouts or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we can access the website so that I can get an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I can take 10 boys there to have a practice, that type of thing.
Okay.
And the park's open, everybody can, bring their dogs and go for a walk and all that type of stuff. But just general public, whether we can go there and have a softball.
Have a family reunion.
Have a softball
Okay.
game, that type of-
Yeah.
Yep.
So just understanding what you can reserve or schedule,
That's right.
making it a little more accessible.
Yep.
Okay.
Catherine, if I may just add one more piece to that.
Of course.
The more access the public has to what's actually scheduled at the park will allow them to figure out when there will not be an organized function going on, and will allow them to go use the park as open space.
Okay. Great. Thank
Couple
you.
more comments here. Multi-use facilities like hiking, walking paths, mountain bike trails. There are also 2 raised hands.
Yep,
on
2
Zoom.
raised hands on Zoom. Thank you for pointing that out. Hold on, let me see
Thank
if
you,
I can
Allison.
figure it out. Thanks, Allison. Let's see. Let's see. I don't even know how to, oh, there they are. John, if you want to lower your hands and unmute
Sure.
yourself, go right ahead.
Yep, John Fortune, 50 Hemlock Drive. First of all, thank the commission for taking this task up. I mean, we walked through there recently, and honestly, it is in tough shape. The fields today that are out there for the baseball fields, I think probably the folks that are involved with baseball have taken good care of those, and those look in great shape. But there's lots of other space that needs to be. I'm an active senior, and I'd like to see things like pickleball or even tennis over there. There's a lot of space for that type of stuff. We can't do that type of activity when school is in session. That's where there are some courts, but you can't go onto those courts or onto the walking track when school is in session. So during the daytime, a lot of us seniors would like to be out and be active somewhere in town. And so Marshall Park would be a great place to be able to do that if it was maintained. Bathrooms are important, as I think people have talked about, and parking, but not only just parking with easy access to some of these areas where seniors might be taking advantage of the space there. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you for getting this started. It seems like there's a lot of work to do, and I appreciate the fact that you're asking everybody to be involved.
Thanks, John.
We have one more, Greg Roy, if you want. Oh, 2 more. Greg Roy, you want to start?
Hey folks, Greg Roy, I'm at 105 Chestnut Street. I'm right across the street from the backstop. And I'm going to mainly be quiet today. I'm really just interested to hear the discussion. But to me, nothing really specific for me. I can think of a lot of specific things I'd like to see, but I think above all, I just want to see the park be vital, kind of have some vitality again, and be like a hub for folks to really use. And it kind of dovetails into what other people have said about, real good walking access and parking access, and just making it a place where we see people there all the time. And it's just nice to have people there. And I think if we have people there, some of the issues around neglect and things tend to go away because people may take some ownership of it. So just kind of whatever we do, what I'd like to see in the future for Marshall Park is just its vitality again, just to bring it back up and be a place where everybody in town, I mean, kids all the way up to our seniors can use it together.
Thank you, Greg. Tim Murphy.
Hi, Tim Murphy, 97 Van Island Road. There hasn't been any discussion really about the pond. Is that under your purview? Is there talk about what's going to be done? Is there going to be any area where the kids could go fishing, where people could assemble to do more ice skating? That whole area around the pond, I assume that is within your jurisdiction, and there wasn't any discussion about what to do with the pond. It needs to be cleaned out.
It is in our jurisdiction. It is part of this process. And yes, we agree, it does need to be cleaned out of years of muck. Yeah. Yes, but it is under it does fall under the Marshall Park, so it is part of the Park Commission properties.
The benches and hockey nets will be back there for this winter. We re-procured last winter.
Great.
It'll be brought back out soon by the DPW and put down by the Highland Street side of the pond there to be put back out.
I would just hate to see this whole project lose sight of the fact that the pond is valuable as well, and it can provide a lot of recreational activity for kids as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
If I could segue off of that for just a second. As everybody knows, I always have an opinion or comment. As we're going through this process, I've been in this town all my life. I grew up in that neighborhood, and as we're going through this process historically, I am learning so much about this property that I never knew. And I'd like to put a challenge out to everybody at home and everybody in this room. If you have pictures, memories, anything that's appropriate to document what's happened at that park since the 20s when it was built, that's information that is invaluable. People forget. in a very short period of time what it used to be or what it's been at a certain period of time. The Historical Commission has preserved some photographs, and I expect you'll be seeing some of those in the future, of activities that went on there in the 20s, 30s, 40s. There isn't a lot beyond that, and I know that Marshall Park was the center of athletics in Lunenburg when I was growing up. We didn't have the tracks at the schools. All of the activities were at Marshall Park, including a bonfire every year. So anything that either you can send to the Parks Commission or the Historical Society that you have for information or photos especially would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Is there something you want to add?
I'm just going to talk a little bit about the pond. I have pictures starting, I think, early 2000s that my neighbor documented the pond, and the health of the pond has really, degraded quite a bit, and it could be a mix of reasons. The town now has sewers, so there is likely less water flowing to the pond. There is also more use of fertilizers that just runs off into the waterways, and a pond that doesn't have a lot of water running, the fertilizer just sits and it creates an overgrowth, and then it just creates a cycle that's not healthy. But we don't know how far we'll be able to get within this project, but it's definitely something that we in the Parks Commission have talked about it multiple times, and we just need to find the right path to address that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we love seeing, I remember the middle school kids used to come and just, go around the pond and look for, I don't know what, but it was always cool to see them. Yeah. And the teen center this year, they went down and they cleared off around the pound. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice. We have a picnic table that we'll put it there out come spring. But it'll be great to be able to get the water more accessible for everybody. Mm-hmm. There is great wildlife out there. So, yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
One other comment about the pond online here. The pond needs attention, lights for skating. Used to be lit up. It's not lit up anymore. Mm-hmm. And Emily, just remind everybody again, please include your comments in the link.
Yeah. Real quick comment about Marshall Pond, seeing as that's the subject right now. One of the historical things that I learned just this past week from the Historical Society in a document they have in their folder is that Marshall Pond was originally Marshall Meadow. It's another one of those man-made ponds. The town of Lunenburg actually built, if you want to call it that, a dam, which is what holds Marshall Pond back at this point. I don't know what the first one looked like, but it failed very quickly, and they built a second one, and that's what you see there today. So that is a man-made pond that was a meadow back in the 20s.
Great. All right, any other comments before we move on to our penultimate question? All right, here we go. Right, drum roll, aesthetic preferences. So, now that we have an understanding of the kinds of activities that people are interested in taking part in Marshall Park, it's also helpful for us to start to identify what should it look like. And so we put together 3 sort of typologies, and it's a little clearer on that screen back there, but my microphone won't reach, so I'm going to point to this one. The first row, A, is a brightly colored playground area with sort of a more contemporary picnic shelter for when people want to have picnics, family reunions, birthday parties. And then we have a brightly colored outdoor fitness track for outdoor fitness, frankly. And so then we have option B, which has a brightly colored, more traditional playground area with a more traditional picnic shelter. And then a less bright, sort of more muted outdoor fitness equipment. And then in the row C, we have more of a nature play. It's got more of a rustic look. Nature play incorporates logs, boulders, things that kids can scramble over and play on and climb up. We've also got a little bit more rustic picnic shelter with a fireplace in the middle for those cold nights. And then some really more kind of casual rustic workout equipment made up of 6x6s and 8x8s. And so for us, it would be helpful, and the instructions are a little different for everyone here personally, and then for everyone on Zoom. If everyone on Zoom could vote for A, B, or C, your preference on the online survey. And here we're going to go old school and raise our hands. So everybody who likes A, which is the multicolored, slightly more contemporary, if you could raise your hand. No?
Dave King is asking if C is mainly constructed of wood-based material.
Yes. Doesn't have to be, but it can be.
All right, so I have to ask a question then, real quick. So I think aesthetically, personally, I'm in favor of C, but it's not very durable. So is there a way to do C but make it durable like A and B?
I think C can be made more durable with proper footings, and
it's still wood. It's still wood though.
it is still wood. Yes, no, it's still
Perfect.
exposed.
Okay. All right.
But there would be sort of more additional maintenance. And I know this sounds, for some of the nature playgrounds, they're actually doing cast stone or concrete that looks like logs. So they're very durable with durable finishes. It's a mixed bag, and it's sort of more of an idea at this point rather than drilling down to the types of fasteners we're using, but it's definitely something to keep in mind as we're moving the project forward and figuring out how to do something that gets the look, but is also durable and reliable and minimal maintenance. So for round A, I didn't see any hands in this room for A. Is that correct? All right, no A's. How about B? Oh, B's, whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, we've got 8 B's in this room. Allison, can you write that down, please? And for C, our sort of nature rustic playground, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so we've got 6 C's. Sounds like the B's have it, but you never know. Zoom could change everything.
We had 1A online.
Oh, and 1A.
A lot of
Yeah,
C's.
and I think a bunch of folks are yielding, putting their votes in via the chat on Zoom.
Okay. So that concludes our voting portion of the evening. And I think the most important part, and once we've done next steps and thanks, also any other closing comments that anybody has, we're happy to hear them. Oh, Dave, I see your hand up.
Of course. Just in response to the comments about A, B, and C, especially C, you guys hit the nail on the head, and that is longevity of wood. But there's another component to that, and that is maintenance. We can build any one of those 3 combinations that were there. If we don't maintain them, they're all going to deteriorate. Some may be faster than others, but if they've got the proper surface coatings and so on, and we maintain those, then they will last just as long as any one of the other 2.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Karen, you want to handle that?
So that's sort of a loaded question, because do we have it in our possession right now? No. Do we believe we can get it through grants? We do believe we can get a good portion of it through grants. It's a process, of course, to figure those out, but there are grants out there. And, it would be my hope that, and I think at least Dave's hope, that the majority of this could be funded through grants. We could always obviously ask the town if we needed to, and then the town would be the ones to make the decision on, whether or not they're going to give us the money. I don't believe it was, I say this not 100% sure of how it's going to look at the end. I don't see it being done all at one time. I do think it's gonna end up being one of those projects because of funding and things like that, that it's going to be done in a couple of different phases versus doing it all at one time. So this piece of the process is funded through capital planning this past year, and then the next steps we'll have to figure it out and how to do it.
Yeah, just-
But, you know, one thing, it's like, for us to go out to get money, you know, we need to have an idea what the project is. Because even if we were to ask our state rep to try to give us money for one specific thing, they would need to know, you know, specifically for which part of the project. So we're trying to get there. But the hope is that we'll be able to get it, you know, outside us.
Oh, I guess he's coming up.
So Chris Menard, 672 Page Street. I'm also on Finance Committee. One thing we're tracking is that there's a lot of federal grants that are coming out right now, and a lot of them are starting to be earmarked towards improvements of parks. So there is a potential through those avenues, and having a master plan always puts you in a better seating, that you're not just, you know, wishing for money. You've actually planned it to get to that. So this is a good step towards that kind of thing. But those federal grants are being earmarked for those kind of things.
Do you want to?
Bouncing off of that, if I could, real quick. Everybody remembers the town purchased a Saliva property in Northfield Park up on Northfield Road. That was under the Parkland Grant Program. That's about, the parks portion, I believe, was 400,000, the maximum that you could get from the Parkland Grant. And speaking with Open Space, that is one of the grants that we should be eligible to go after once we have a schematic design in place. You have to have a plan and a rough dollar amount for that plan before you can apply for any of this stuff. So that is a next step after we get through this process.
There's 2 questions online. Do you want me to go to them now, or do you want?
Do your next steps.
The gentleman here had something.
I just have a follow-up.
Yeah, Cliff, will you come up to a microphone for us? You probably don't have to duck down, you can just, it'll pick you up.
I just have a follow-up with the finance part of it, and you're talking about federal grants and all of that stuff. I know that when we were building the track, we were not allowed to access a lot of grants because we were more of a suburban community than an urban community. And that would really, you know, make me want to wonder how much federal government money is actually going to be put into suburban projects versus urban. You know, not to say we're an affluent community, but we're,
No, and I mean,
you know, more of that than an unaffluent.
It's a good question, and, you know, I don't know what the answer to that is. I can tell you that I think COVID has changed the face of a lot of things going on right now, and I think that parks, passive recreation, have become extremely popular because of COVID. I think we're going to see some changes coming through, and, you know, obviously if there's grants available to us, we'll apply for them.
No, I understand
And, you know,
that.
cross our fingers that we get them. Do you want me to hit these 2 folks now, or?
Let's just do it,
All
and then
right.
we'll do next steps.
Chris, do you want to unmute and go ahead?
You know, I'm assuming you mean Chris Martin, so I will unmute and talk. From looking at all this stuff, and I haven't been involved in all these meetings, I just happened to get an email on this the other day, so I decided to pop on. But it looks like we're putting about 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag. And I'm just curious if other lands have been looked at. Someone just brought up the Saliva property. I know they just bought 50 or 60 acres of property right behind my house here. And it is owned by the Parks and Recreation Department. And I didn't know if they had looked at anything of any portion of that land to do some of the stuff that they're talking about doing at Marshall Park. I mean, from living in this town and being at Marshall Park quite a bit, most of that park is taken up by baseball fields. And, you know, I'd be curious as to how they plan on doing all this stuff without affecting the baseball fields.
So that's a hard question to answer in terms of what Marshall Park is going to have in it. I think that it's been made clear a few times, or at least opinions have been made a few times, about not wanting to have this an overdeveloped piece of property, to continue having the rustic charm that it has, so that it fits our community. if it comes, when they're looking at it, they're not gonna try to fit too much in there because they're gonna want it to aesthetically fit our environment. To answer the question on other properties, yes, Saliba is presently under the Parks Commission. We don't have any future plans for it yet. It's just a matter of time and trying to figure out how to do it and what we want there. So it's, and money. Every single project that we want to do is going to cost money. So yes, the Saliba property is available for development should we decide to do anything with it. I don't see that in the immediate future because I think we need to figure out all the other pieces of our puzzle right now.
Jumping on that, when you talk about nature trails, we have a lot of conservation land and this land, so I personally don't think that Marshall Park is, there's a lot of area that we can do nature trails. I think we have options for nature trails other places.
Yep. Tim Murphy, do you want to unmute?
I think I am unmuted.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go right
Good.
ahead.
I just want to reiterate what was said earlier about maintenance and repair of the whatever does happen. We built what was called then the Leathers Playground at the TC Passios with all kinds of plans and committees and money set aside to maintain and care for it. And then for lots of different reasons, which I won't get into, it just didn't happen. And we need to make sure that this is something that will require less maintenance and less care so that we can hopefully have it for a long period of time. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So, next steps. After tonight, the design team, which is WOLA and Meridian Associates, will compile and analyze all of the feedback that we've gotten from tonight. And we'll consider that as well as the feedback that we've gotten from our meetings with the Park Commission, Parks and Rec, DPW, and also the survey that the Park Commission did. So taking all of that data and kind of putting it together, thinking about it, and using that to guide our design work. So thinking about what are two options that could give the people of Lunenburg what they're looking for at Marshall Park. We're going to do two concept design alternatives, and we're going to develop them. You can use those as you figure out your way forward. So it's more of a, these are two options, and the community can kind of work their way. Well, we like this, we don't like this. So you're determining your own destiny. we don't do that. And then we're going to present these design alternatives and cost estimates to you, the public, in about a month, in early February. And that way you'll have an idea of what the plans look like, what's in them, and about how much they would cost to bring to completion. And then we will look forward to getting your feedback on those two alternatives. And once a preferred alternative is selected, we'll move forward and develop that and sort of finish up the process. But we really do thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's a Thursday night, and this is going to be really helpful as we develop our design work. So thank you so much, and thank you to the Park Commission and Lunenburg.
Thank you so much. So,
questions or anything?
Yep.
Yeah, any questions?
Go ahead, Dan.
Can I just ask a loaded question?
Yeah, come up.
Put you on the spot,
Come up though.
Go for it.
I know you hate to come up, but
Yeah.
you're stuck with it.
but no worries. Has the park department and/or the town of Lunenburg hired her company like a flat rate that it's gonna cost so much to do what she just talked about?
Yes.
Okay, that being said, is it possible for us, meaning town of Lunenburg people, to get an existing conditions plan so that we can use some of the resources that we have in the town of Lunenburg to just kind of scheme up some ideas? Because what always bothers me is the fact that we have resources in our town. We have civil engineers, we have construction guys, we have excavating guys, we have carpenters, we have plumbers, we have electricians, we have general budget type people, we have all that type of stuff. And I just feel like sometimes it's easier if we can have a round table discussion, meaning us, without you present. Okay, not to be insulting or anything, but seriously, I
You-
just think,
you
so
can do
if I had
whatever
an
you want.
existing condition plan,
Yeah,
I mean, I
you're
just feel
welcome
like
to
there's
it.
people that might take it home with them and spend an hour, a week or whatever and kind of come up with that type of stuff. So I can give you an email, so if I could get a PDF of an existing condition
Absolutely.
plan, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, no problem at all.
All right, thank you.
We'll scale it.
Yeah, 1 equals 20, that's fine.
I'd like to make one response to that, and I think Dan knows where I'm coming from. We are very much aware of the volunteerism and the willingness of the general public to commit funds to these parks. We don't know everything that's been done over the years. We've gotten a little spattering of the information over the past 6 or 8 months, but most of that was done, I'll say, over the last 3 decades with either a non-active Parks Commission or a Parks Commission that was not being made aware of all this work being done. So it's a communication thing that I think we need to work on, I agree, and I think there's a process that today needs to be stepped through in what you just asked about, whereas maybe 3 decades ago it was, yeah, okay, tell the DPW director you're doing it, he'll look the other way and you get it done. Back in those days, you got a lot done with a lot of, little expense, but those days are gone now. There's so much liability that the town takes on when projects are done and not properly vetted. Thank you.
Cliff, did you have something?
So you. So you're talking about coming back with 2 design plans, correct?
Correct.
If they look at the design plans and say, we like this in design 1 and this in design 2, can they be incorporated together?
We can
I mean-
try, that's. we
You know what
can
I'm saying? I
try
mean,
to-
if
yeah.
you've got one thing in this design that people like,
Yeah,
but what you have over, let's say what you have in area 1, people like, but they don't like what you did in area 2, but on design 2, they like what you did in area 2.
so that's actually usually how it goes. And we're happy to make things fit as best we can.
Yep.
Not knowing what those 2 like abstract things might be, I can't guarantee it, but we are always looking to, we can't make everybody happy,
I understand that.
but we're always looking to make as many people happy as possible. So if we can bring things from A and B together and come up with something, then we're happy to do that. And I think that's what we're sort of anticipating for the, like the final design.
I'm just looking at it as,
Mhm.
this is Plan A, you accept this is Plan B, you accept this, which one do you want?
It's more of a process than a this or this.
Well, I have to, I think some of the limitations might be space usage. So
Yeah.
the area 1 and 2 on those 2 spaces, those 2 plans might be different. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about that during our first meeting with her, and that wasn't a problem at all.
We'll work with it as much as we can to bring the 2 preferred portions of the alternatives together.
They're not 2 finalized
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
working,
Yeah.
there are 2 things to work off of to create a final
Yep.
product.
Yeah.
And not to reiterate what Dave said a little while ago, but I can tell you that a lot of the projects that were done in this town were done with the knowledge of the Park Commission, were done with the approval of the Park Commission, and we knew what was going on. So.
Great.
And I just want to clarify something. I wasn't volunteering my excavating services to help out the whole town. Okay, that's not what I was saying.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm just saying sometimes I would enjoy just taking a plan and trying to figure a few things, and I have some friends of mine that would do the same, okay? That's not what I was saying. So I just want to clear the air on that one.
One thing I'll add to it is, it's when I joined the Parks Commission, there is a need as we grow to become, I don't want to say to be more like a city, but to just formalize some of the things that we have always done. And that's what I see, maybe what I hear from Dave's comment is maybe we just need to formalize and figure out how to do it. But we still do a lot of things from volunteers. I mean, the park that we have down in Whalum, at the track that we did. So we can't, as we grow as a town and we have more population, we can't totally eliminate that part of how we did things. So we just got to find ways to coordinate because you know, there's so many dens that can bring their excavator and do so much for the town. So it'd be good to try to get other ways to get some of the things done. But whatever we don't get it done, you know, I might be the one giving you a call, right? So it's but it can't just be all on us. We pay enough taxes out there that if we can get some of that money back, I'm all for it. I'm gonna go for it. And then I'll call you on the little things, okay?
Great. Any other?
So I have one quick question slash comment from the field. It's Anthony Cayoso. So some folks asked me, there wasn't much mention tonight about where the skate park is going to be factored into this, the map that you had earlier. So just for clarity, would it make sense just to bring that up? Would you like to highlight that so folks can see where that's going on the map?
And
So they can get
before you move that, Anthony,
sure. Yes, sir.
the picture that is up on Zoom right now is looking right at that plot.
Yeah, it's pretty close to where it's going to be.
Correct. Yeah, no, I understand that, but just so they can see it from an aerial perspective.
Yep,
because
no, that's fine.
The trees in the picture kind of look like all the other trees in the park.
Right. On the right where those trees are.
From that side.
Correct.
You know, the circle, like as you drive in?
Yeah, let's look at the aerial photo. It's a lot easier to visualize it that way.
We have a wall?
Yeah, there's a stone wall.
Yeah,
Stone wall at
there's
the
a wall and
entrance.
trees.
Oh.
Right at the gate.
Okay. I thought you meant in the middle. Yeah, I know you're
All right.
Is everyone aware of that, by the way?
So we have a group in town called the 01462 Skate Park.
Everyone's aware of the skateboard project.
Yep.
Okay.
So they are looking to go in, and we don't have a great way to point it out. Were you able to draw it on? Up there it is.
It's kind of highlighted, yeah.
So she's got a whole bunch of scribbles. I don't think this is what our final plan's gonna look like, right?
No, it's not. Oh, no, that's the final. We're done.
We're done.
Shovel ready.
So it would be, the current playground area is closer, on that piece of property, closer to the number 3. It's on that side of the property. The skate park is looking at the piece of property that is that west? It's where the word play is. They're looking to put their skate park in about right there.
Is electrical line?
Been decided it's not part of this whole plan? No. I mean, to me, that could be parking, like, I feel like we're coming into this at the back end. That we're
No,
just
so
trying to talk about this.
the skate park, and Anthony, feel free to chime in if you need to. So
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't hear what the person in the audience is saying.
okay, sorry. Let me see if she wants to.
No, I'm sorry. Who made that comment?
Hold on one second.
Dawn Johnson, 357 Lancaster Ave. I guess I'm just a little surprised that I've been sitting here for an hour and a half and I'm just hearing now that that's where the skate park's going, when we're talking about designing a whole plan. And I'm thinking as I'm looking at it, you know, where's the parking, where's this, where's that? And now we've already decided that we're giving up this part of the land for a skate park. I am a little taken aback
no one's giving
by
up
that.
anything.
So
no one's giving anything up. We're looking to incorporate this
Yeah.
into the design to serve a particular demographic in our community. So it's
No, I
just
understand.
one of
I'm
the-
not against the skate park. I just.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying
I
we're
guess
not
I'm
giving
just a little
anything up at all.
surprised that it's kind of
so what
feels like that's already been decided.
Yes. So it has for the most part. That's the piece of land that they have come in, and that's where they are currently using their architect design people. I don't know what they're called in the skate park world, looking at that piece of property and skate park design. So there's a bigger back history to this that started actually with the select board approving this skate park to go in at a location that the Parks Commission didn't support. And as it progressed through, what, Anthony, the last 2 years or so, it morphed into, the select board wanted it to fall under the Parks Commission. We can't give them permission to build on land that isn't ours. So when we looked at the piece of properties that we had and we looked at what their requirements were, which were things like kids being able to walk there, because the primary demographic of the users is going to be the high school age kids. Can they get there after school safely? So when we walked Marshall Park, the only area that we came up with as we walked it is that area. But their process started back when the select board gave them the okay to move ahead. So this group has been working and raising money for the last 2+ years, and they needed a home. So when we looked at this with them, that's where we had come up with. Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
And just from a statistical perspective, just to put this in perspective for everyone, because I don't know if that drawing there is exactly to scale. When you consider the size, the footprint of Marshall Park versus the size of the proposed skate park, we're talking about less than 1% of the total land being used for this facility, this particular feature within the park. So it's extremely small from a comparison perspective. But yeah, in terms of the engineering behind this, we've done an immense amount of work to figure out where the potential locations, where is the best location, and what is obviously under the ground that will enable us to finish formulating a budget and design so we can continue moving forward with this. Because our timeline is a bit more advanced than this master plan for Marshall Park. It looks like we're going to be putting our facility in there first, ideally a bit later this year, and then the rest of the facility will eventually be built around us.
I do have one. What was that?
Well, like she said, we were here an hour and a half, and now we just find out that the skateboard park's going in there. I don't know why the presentation didn't start.
So
This area was already taken up by the skateboard. If we knew that, it just would have probably sit a little easier.
They have nothing to do with the skate park. Just so to be clear, they have nothing to do with it all.
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It's we knew about it, and honestly, it didn't cross my mind that maybe not everybody knew that had been a decision, and it was just the only spot that would work on that park. Period. That's similar to what the health department is working on. We're gonna have some limitation if they actually do the septic field. We might get we can only build a septic field in this one location, so we have to go there. But I hear you.
It's just the vision of the park. It doesn't really sit with all the beautiful pictures that we're looking at. No offense to the skate park.
No, totally understand. John Fortune has a question on Zoom.
Yes, sorry. But I do agree with some of the speakers that are there, the previous speakers talking about that. I mean, I also came into this thinking anything was up, and I believe that's what's been said. Anything's been up to change. And now what we're hearing is anything's up to change except for this one particular spot. And that doesn't bode well. I think if we're paying these architects to go out and give us a total plan, they ought to give us a total plan, that included, wherever they feel it is best. And maybe that's the best spot.
Right.
But, again, it really should be part of the plan, not we're telling them this is where it's going to be. My only comments there.
Thank you.
All right.
Korean Scout and 830 Mass Ave, just a further comment on that. That's the main entrance to the park. That's going to be the first thing you see when you pull in there. Aesthetically, doesn't work for me. I'm not against a skate park in town, but it doesn't work for me in that space. Again, back to my comment earlier about keeping it, wooded and natural. Doesn't work. And it is disappointing to only hear about this now. If that was in place already, it should have been well publicized before this process began.
It actually was.
Well,
We've
if I
been
didn't hear
talking
about
about
it, that
it
isn't well publicized.
So,
for 4 years.
This is, I'm trying to keep things politically correct. This wouldn't have been my first choice of a project as a Parks Commissioner. Anthony is very well aware of this. It was sort of put in our laps by some decisions that were made by another board. And it's the people that are actually spearheading this was started off as a 7th grade project. The majority of the kids that are involved in this are now juniors in high school. And it's this is not the way it should have gone down. Absolutely agree with everybody. This would not, in an ideal world, there would be another piece of property that could fall under us that we could put it, because it is a concrete structure in the middle of the entranceway. But the reason that piece of property, when we looked at it, it's because of the access to Mass Ave. It's because of the visibility from Mass Ave. There was no place else in that park that we could say, go here, because there wasn't the visibility that that location had. So we're sort of, and I am happy to forward to anybody who wants it, any of the links from, and they're all on YouTube, because the majority of our discussions with them have been over the last 2 years now.
But even 6, I mean.
Yeah, 6 months or so, they've started to pick up even more so. But we do have some graphics of the stuff that they've done to see what this would look like, in an area like that, an overhead of where it's exactly positioned. I can send it to anybody who wants it.
Just so we know where we are in the phase of this, the parks permitting, our only vote that we have was to give them the okay to do, it was like, they cannot break ground. There is no, we have not given anyone the authorization to break ground. We said, we agree that it can't possibly be in this spot, so they could go out and get design plans. So far, that's the only vote that I have participated on to be in that park. And I was not comfortable doing anything beyond that. They don't have the funding yet, and I don't think, and I definitely, I have said this to Karen in private, and I'll say it here, is so everybody knows, until they have the full funding, I would not say that, I will not vote for it. Because we, as a town, have not voted to build a skate park in town meeting. So until they have full funding, I will never vote.
Actually, Anna, we did vote on
Anthony, now
this.
interrupt me. Allow me to finish. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So as of the last meeting they came, they did not have full funding, and I will not vote for building ground on anything. And if they don't have it, so anyway, so this project can't happen there, and it cannot happen there. But I don't think we should sign up to allow anyone to build something in town property that then we are going to have to finish, and that's just not fair to the town.
And I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody saying, you allowed this or whatever.
No, I hear you.
It's just the communication piece, and, I know I heard Anthony, say that, oh yeah, it's been out there, you guys said it's been out there. But as you know, there's small groups of people that are involved in different things in town, and then there are some people that are involved in many things in town. And the communication and the social piece of getting the information out there is a problem for this town. So you can't possibly know everything about everything. So that's just all I'm saying, is that there's a little bit of disappointment here in hearing something like this at the end of this meeting, where it should have probably been on the plan as potential skate park, right, to start, so that we were all on the same page from the beginning.
Does anybody else have? Cliff.
Just to follow up on this a little bit, back about, 12, 15 years ago, there was a group of kids in town that wanted to skate, and they were skating all over the center of town, and they wanted them out of there. So they came to the park and said, hey, is there a place for these kids to go? And the only place that we could find at the time was that small area just on the outside of the Little League field. The town came in, the highway department came in, they paved it, gave the kids a paved area. The kids built their own ramps, set it all up. The problem that we had was, to be honest with you, was vandalism. And then we got involved with the police department and stuff like that, and they said, if we can put this in a place that's more accessible and more visible, it would be a lot better and we'd have a lot less vandalism. I understand why you want to put it there, okay? It's visible, it's accessible, and all of that stuff. I understand the reluctancy of it because it's the entrance into the park. It is a potential expanded parking area, understand that. If I'm wrong in this, I think in the beginning concept of this skate park, they were talking about putting it out behind patios. were next to Passios, and then that got all shot down because they didn't know what they were gonna do with Passios, and they still don't know what they're gonna do with it. So then they decided, let's, see if we can put it over in Marshall somewhere. And I know that the area where we originally had put the kids skating and stuff was not a good area for them to go. So to put them back there is wrong. You want to put a pickleball court over there, I think that's a great place for something like that. Pardon me? It's a great place for it. It's already paved. If you want to coat it, let me know. I'll see what I can do to donate it. Ask the teen center. They'll tell you all about that. But seriously, is it the best place for it? Probably not. But is it a good place for it? Yeah, because number one, it's visible, it's accessible, and it's accessible not just for the kids, but also for emergency responders. Easy to get to in case something happens. And, I'm not putting the kids down or anything, but we know how kids and skateboards can be sometimes. Injuries happen and that stuff happens. So, if we can move it back away from the road as much as possible, that might be a good thing. So.
I do have Tim Murphy with his hand up. Tim?
I think you called on me.
Yep, go ahead.
Anthony said a few minutes ago on the chat that it's about 1.5 size of a basketball court. So I'm wondering why it isn't over by where the basketball court is now.
Because the basketball court now is hidden.
Accessibility.
There's no accessibility.
It's the same accessibility. You walk in Mass Ave, you walk around back to the skateboard
You can't get a vehicle over there at all.
Well, I'm assuming not all these kids are driving.
What if somebody gets hurt?
And even if they are driving,
Emergency
they can park.
emergency vehicles.
Huh?
Lighting, emergency vehicles, it's hidden away, it's tucked away, it's the same, you'd be looking at the same kind of visibility and so you have where the old skate park was.
I think it's better than the current proposal, but I guess that's my opinion.
Thank you, Tim.
So just one more point, and then I'll try to be quiet after this. So Cliff mentioned the word vandalism. So that just brought up a thought for me that we didn't talk about along the way, but is lighting. As much as I want it to stay natural, it would be nice if there was increased lighting, because living across the street, I watch the vehicles go in and out of there all night long. And you can only imagine what's going on in the park at that time of night. So speaking of vandalism, it's going to have to be really policed.
There's been talk about aesthetics and the look of the park and things like that, and I'm not envisioning, I'm a big supporter of the skate park. They've looked at a variety of locations within Marshall, around town. This is the spot that seems to be the best suited in terms of safety and accessibility and so forth. But I don't, I'm also a big proponent of aesthetics and not driving into Marshall Park and seeing a concrete slab. And I don't think that's what anybody that's working on this project, is going to envision that that's what we necessarily want to see. I mean, I think it's going to be, it's going to be landscaped. It's going to be, kind of not hidden, but it's not going to be like, oh, here's a concrete slab and then welcome to Marshall Park. That's not what anyone I think is looking for. I'll speak for me personally. But.
I think one thing that's important to remember is that as part of the master plan, what we're trying to do is to incorporate things into a cohesive whole. And I think that there are things that can be done with mild adjustments to the siting of the skate park or adjustments to its geometry, so that rather than being maybe a central sort of square, it can be more linear. And, I think there are ways that the master plan can work with the skate park folks to figure out a way to make sure that it's integrated into the whole so that it's more successful, because that's what a successful park is. It has a place that feels like a whole with a separate series of distinct spaces where people can undertake the recreation that they want. So I think that by being willing to work with the park commission and the Park Commission being willing to work with the skate park folks, that we can come up with something that doesn't feel jarring or inappropriate, but rather feels like it has been worked into the fabric of Marshall Park. And I think that the skate park design, Anthony, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the skate park design is not finalized. So there is some wiggle room in there for adjustments, which will accommodate a more harmonious master plan. And so
That is absolutely correct. And
Okay.
we are honestly,
So-
I don't say nowhere near done, but we're nowhere near done with the initial design. But we do have an idea as far as the topology goes. And we're just trying to literally work into that so it's not garish, it's not offensive. It looks natural. It looks like it's part of the terrain.
and it can be set down a bit in the land rather than held above it. So
Exactly.
That, it's not like a wall of concrete and skateboarders as you walk in, but it's like set into the park. And that sort of tough line to walk is where our work is. So we'll come up with a couple of ideas and see what you all think. Okay. Thank you.
Emily capturing.
Oh yes, Emily and Allison.
They capture the whole chapter?
Yep.
Okay. all right,
And
sorry.
Nick. Everybody's on it. All right. Well, I think I covered next steps. And thank you to everyone. I really appreciate you coming out, listening, logging in. Oh, yes, please. Yes, please. Leave your papers. I would love your notes that you wrote down on them. They'll be part of our responses. If your personal notes you can take home, but the placemats I would love, please.
Before everybody signs off or leaves the room, our next meeting is actually going to be January 20th, and that's the current plan, right?
Yeah. We should actually touch base.
Okay, I take all of that back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stand by.
It'll be posted. I'll make sure it's on the recreation Facebook page, so.
We'll get it on the Lunenburg interwebs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Facebook pages.
And we'll send out another flyer so that everybody gets it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Do you need a meeting to adjourn?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, was there any other public comment on, and or board comment on anything else?
No.
Move we adjourn.
Then I will take a motion to adjourn at 8:48. Motion to adjourn. Excellent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I for myself. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Yeah.